Hello, my name is Paul Priestley. Welcome to Art Tutorials Online. This is the third in my series of drawing videos for absolute beginners. Today we're going to be looking at three things that you need to know. Firstly, we're going to be looking at hatching and cross-hatching. We're going to be looking at the use of tone, subtle tone. We're also going to be looking at line, how line can be moved by moving your hand and creating different pressures and creating wonderful line. So, why are you waiting? Come on, let's make a start. I'm going to be using two pencils, an HB pencil and an 8B pencil. You need to have two pencils which are different, one much darker than the other to make this work. Now, I'm going to start with the HB pencil and I'm just dragging the line. I'm going to draw this tree and I'm twisting my hand at the same time as I drag the line because I want the line to look more interesting. I don't want it to look too straight and neat. So I twist the pencil around, just drag my pencil down and I'm drawing it quite lightly. Okay, you should be able to see this, but I'm drawing it quite lightly with my HB pencil, because the HB pencil I want to draw much lighter than the other pencil is going to be used. So basically I'm now going to draw some tree trunks. You notice I'm drawing them very simply. It's just V shapes and tubes almost, you see? But in this context they will look like tree trunks. You see, just simple lines, V shape in between. Okay, triangle shape, that's all it is. Okay. Just put a little line in to suggest the ground in the background and just a nice wiggly wobbly line right round here. Look, that's a good term, isn't it? To draw the tops of the trees, you see? And again, I'm just doing it nice and roughly. You see, using the pencil quite lightly in my fingers because I want to give some character to the drawing. Do you see the idea? Okay, we've got our basic drawing done. We now need to start putting some light and shade on it. Now you'll notice the area between the tree trunks is dark, so I'm using some hatching to do this. Now because this is an HB pencil, the hatching that I'm drawing is not very dark, but in the context of the background it is dark. It's much darker than the tree trunks, and as you see this develop, you can see the tree trunks now beginning to stand out from the background. So even with this small amount of hatching, we are creating depth in our drawing. Now the drawing when it's finished will look very complicated and look quite accomplished. And yet it's drawn very, very simply, just by using line. Now you'll notice here, I am shading the tops of the tree trunks. Now the reason I'm doing this is because immediately it makes those tree trunks look now as though they're underneath the foliage, which is what I want. I'm drawing the foliage in now by just using a simple cross-hatching method. Do you see? I'm just hatching first, going in different directions. But the crucial thing is that I am making sure that I leave white areas, leave blank areas, because this is where the sun is going to catch the light of the foliage, so it will look lighter. The bottoms of the trees, which are away from the sun, are going to be darker, so obviously they will have lots of dark tones. But at the top here you can see I'm leaving blank spaces. Now, using the cross-hatching method that you saw in the previous videos, we can now build up areas of tone, so the foliage begins to have a structure and a shape to it. Do you see what I mean? And by going at different angles, cross-hatching, hence the name, you will create different solid areas to the foliage. You see how it's beginning to develop here? This is what we want to do. Now again, don't cross-hatch everything. Leave some bits free, so you've got a variety of marks, a variety of shapes, which creates a variety of structure in your drawing. Now imagine we've got some bushes behind these trees here. All I'm doing is cross-hatching, right? In this context, they look like bushes behind the trees, but in effect, they are simply just lines. You see, drawing is about suggesting. It's not about drawing all this intricate detail and fussing about detail. Just ignore that. You see here, all I'm doing is just putting a few little lines down the side of the tree to suggest shadow on the side of the tree trunks. Keeping it simple. Everything I am doing is drawn using line. So if you can use line, you can make this drawing. Now, line here is crucial. You see, this is a steep riverbank, so we'll look at the angle of these lines that I'm drawing. Have you noticed they all seem to radiate to a point, the top of the picture, some invisible point. Now watch, you see they'll all radiate to that point. Now, because I'm doing that, have you noticed now that that bank looks steep? So the lines are telling us that the bank is steep because of the angle of the lines. If you draw all the lines the same way, up and down, it's just going to look like a brick wall. It's not going to work. So by using angles, you can create depth in the drawing. Now, underneath here, I'm putting some shadowing. Again, just cross-hatching. Nice and simple. It's not difficult. You see the idea? Nice and simple. So a little bit of softness there. Now, as you're doing this, continue to keep looking. I'm using this nice broken line here. You see, as it goes all the way along the riverbank, I want it to look rough here. I'm going to darken those tops of the trees, tree trunks. You see how now they really do look as though they're underneath the tree. Yes, the tree looks more solid. Again, I'm going to darken some of the foliage. Notice now that I've probably got 3 or 4 different tones because of the hatching that I've been doing on top of each other. You see the different tones? You see how the trees are beginning to have a structure to them. But it only works if you leave some light areas. Don't go over everything. Otherwise it just looks like a big black blob, which doesn't work. Now, around the edge, I'm using this broken line just to suggest the edge of the tree. Don't draw a nice neat line around it. It's not going to work. Break it up. Just suggest a few lines. Do you see the idea? I just darken the foliage behind. You see my bushes behind. Again, all it is, cross-hatching. Simple, you see? I'm just suggesting again. Suggesting, cross-hatching. Nice and simple, you see? Very, very easy. Now, we're going to draw the water. Now, the crucial thing here is 2 things. One, I'm rolling the pencil. I'm rolling it backwards and forwards, just like it would be in the sea. Imagine you're in the sea, you're rolling about. My pencil's doing the same thing. But the other important thing is that the lines are getting wider and wider the closer they get towards me. And have you noticed by doing that, it creates depth? Have you noticed now the background water looks further away because the lines are closer together, and as it comes closer to us at the front of the picture by the big tree, you see the lines get wider apart, and it gives a sense of depth to it. You can go over some of these lines again, do it roughly, you know, just drag your pencil across just to give a little bit of structure to the water, a little bit of shadow or reflection in the water. You could reflect the trees in the water if you wanted to, depends which way the sun's shining and so on. You see the idea? So we're just dragging this across nice and neatly there. Look, oh, it's lovely. See, just imagine you're in the water. Now, I'm changing to my dark 8B pencil. Twist the pencil, press on hard, drag it, make the line rough. Notice already how dark that line is. Notice how that line stands out from the background. Notice how it looks as though it's in front of the trees behind already, and we've only drawn a few lines. Now, we use the same technique that we did with the water. We're just dragging the lines up and down, but pressing on hard, going over each one. Don't draw nice, neat stripes. Neat stripes are boring. It won't work. This is an old oak tree, you see? You want to give some character to the oak tree. By the way, have you ever gone up to an oak tree and hugged it and felt it? It's lovely, you see? It's a living thing that's been there hundreds of years. Beautiful. Now, if you notice here, the line just goes up. I'm just dragging it, rolling it up and down, pressing on hard. There we go. It's looking good. Now, you see, as you do this, you keep putting line upon line. The more lines you put on top of each other, the denser the line becomes. You see a little bit of shadow in here, so the lines get very close together. You see the idea? And here, a hole in the branch. So I'm going over that, shading it by hatching and then cross hatching. So you get a nice dense section. We'll do another section here, look. Imagine another hole in this poor old oak tree. There we go. Do you see more lines? There, hatching and cross hatching. You see, if you can draw lines, you can draw this drawing without any problem at all. So we drag some more lines down. Now, there's something interesting. I wonder whether you'll notice it as I'm drawing these lines up and down. Watch what happens here now. Can you see that the lines are getting slightly wider apart? And as you do that, have you noticed now that the tree trunk is looking more and more curved? Do you see the idea? Now we'll exaggerate this a little later on when we put more and more lines on, but the wider the lines are apart against lines which are very narrow, you will get a sense of roundness. So it's a quite different technique to the one we saw in the previous video. You see here, I'm just going over and over this bit here. The lines look closer together, so the tree is already beginning to look rounded. You see here, look, up and down. Very relaxing this, you see. There we go, just drawing away. Imagine outside there, drawing this in real life. Wonderful, you see, just roll your pencil up and down. Oh, it's beautiful. There you go, you see, keep doing it. Notice by building it up, you see how we can make the tree trunk look a little bit twisted. It's got some shape to it. You see, as you go around some of these areas here, we'll put this little extra branch in here, look, or section in here. There we go. Notice how the tree is really standing out from the background. You see, it's looking really good. Now, we're just going to go over a few of the lines here because, as I say, this is going to make the tree look that little bit more rounded. You see, just put a few lines along here. Just keep going over. Make sure you keep twisting the line. Make each line individual. Remember, each line is important. Each line has got a life of its own. You've created that line. That line should be wonderful, you see? So there we go. Now, we're going to do the grass. Now, remember, from the last video, you flick upwards for the grass, okay? The way the grass grows, it grows upwards, so you flick upwards, okay? You can do some going down behind just to give a bit of variation, but essentially you want to be flicking upwards all the time because it's going to make your drawing look really, really good. Here we go. You see the idea? Brilliant. Now, we're just going to tidy up one or two things, just darken this little bit a bit more, I think, but just by hatching a little bit more on top. We might put a little shadow on the side here. This will look really quite good. A little bit of shadow just to touch this up. Now you could do more of this as well, obviously, but we're coming to the end of the drawing now. So I hope you've enjoyed working on the drawing. I hope you've added the shadow. Remember to do the lines, and I hope your drawing has worked successfully. So don't forget to practice, practice, practice. Cross-hatching, using tone, and using lots of variations in line. If you've enjoyed this video, then please give it a like. If you can subscribe to my channel, you can see the details here, that would be absolutely wonderful. If you want to support the making of these videos, then please check out my Patreon channel. You'll find lots of interesting rewards in return for your patronage, which will be fantastic. So thank you for watching. Cheers!